applies. So I think it just takes so long for the money to work its way into the system.
It does,
Yeah.
sadly. That's when you
But,
need,
you know.
philanthropists around with the big bucks.
Well, they had an Amazon wish list.
Yeah, I saw
Which I
that
thought,
too.
this is a tough way to run an airline,
Yeah.
you know? The treatment centers have to have an
Right.
Amazon wish list.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be $45 million,
Yeah.
trickling down to the places that need it. So we look forward to seeing them get what they need to operate fully.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But fortunately, they're operating very fully in Dover and Rochester, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And the staff was there. They had
Yeah.
3 people there.
Yeah.
Mary and
Yes, yeah, Mary's one of the ones I work with.
yeah, Judy Herbert's daughter Jessie,
Jessie, yeah,
was
she's
there.
great, yeah.
Judy's in my support group.
Oh, you know Judy,
Yeah.
that's excellent. I haven't met her yet, I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, she's great. And I'd love Jessie to talk to the group, but, she's taking this master's program now
Yeah.
at UNH, so she's got a
She and
lot.
I are speaking at a Rotary meeting in Exeter
Oh, I don't like driving.
on Monday.
Cool,
Yeah.
yeah. So Kathy Flygar,
Yeah.
you must know her, Alex, has dedicated her year of presidency
Yes.
to this issue.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, and of course they paid for the recovery coaching.
Yeah, and that's still going on, and they're gonna continue that focus too.
Good.
That's my understanding.
Good.
Everything
Awesome.
is- And then night it makes it worse,
I need to
so.
contact her. I'm gonna send around a sign-in sheet if you would please, so I can make sure I have contact
I
information.
was gonna say, if you bring you home.
I already told the company.
Okay,
I didn't know who was gonna be here,
well,
so.
if there's another time, we'll do that, okay?
The parking out there was,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm in a
Rough.
non-parking spot.
yeah,
I have a perfect spot. Somebody was pulling it.
oh,
I think that was the one I was waiting
You
for, and I was
must
just like, I don't wanna wait
live
anymore.
you must live well.
I do.
I didn't plan on the football game, I think that's what the parking
Yeah.
is all about. There's usually
Yes.
very few people here, but it's busy tonight.
Lindsay will be here, right?
I had hoped so. I sent her a message. Don't know, didn't hear from her, so it's no surprise probably to anybody at the table that the people who do this work
No, I don't.
are straight out.
Yeah.
Me too.
Ryan Fowler dropped off some of the materials that are in your packet to me today, because he couldn't be here. He's recently moved.
What town you moved to? Is he out of Exeter?
He's at the beach now.
Oh, he is,
North,
yeah.
she said.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him a little bit.
Yeah.
No, you're a little
cool.
cluster. Is Mary
This is a
living
new
too,
piece, this is
Mary?
nice.
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
I don't know where she lives, actually.
okay.
The Narcan on the table is for anybody who wants it.
I just gave one to somebody,
Yeah.
so I've only got my own, so I'm gonna
You know,
take this, thank you.
None of us, if we don't have somebody active in the house, we think we don't need it. But we don't recognize that when we're riding around in our car,
Yeah.
we might come across somebody who looks like they're in
That's a
trouble.
good idea.
So
Yes.
it's there for the taking.
Yeah.
And there's more where that came from. I asked a pharmacist the other day how much Narcan costs, and he said $159.
Wow.
This was at the CVS pharmacy. And I said, well, surely nobody pays that. He said, no, insurance, covers some. So all the treatment centers have it.
Public Health Network has it, yes.
Seacoast Public Health Network has it for free. So there would be no reason for anybody to have to pay for it if they knew where else to get it.
And if we're working with a business through the Recovery Friendly Workplace Initiative, we work through the Doorway and/or the Public Health Network, and we are always able to provide it
Excellent.
for free. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like everything else about this issue though, Karen. Do people know that, So we know that.
Spread the word as fast as we can.
Yes, well,
And we're on social
That's-
media, so.
yeah, that's part of the reason why I started the coalition, because I wanted people to get the information. I wanted us to figure out a way to network so that we could share information.
Right.
Because we're really kind of isolated in our pockets of influence. So I guess we'll get started. Maybe some people will come later, I'm not sure. So thank you for coming. As I mentioned, some of our regulars are not here tonight because they're not well, so we wish them speedy recoveries. the packet contains information from the doorway that Ryan left with me this afternoon. The family support group, we're calling it now Seacoast Family Support rather than Exeter, because we are getting calls from Hampton and other towns that don't have their own support group. So we'd appreciate it very much if you'd spread that word. The list of the 18 family support groups are on, in your packet on this sheet, and that also is information we wish that you would share in your, on your staff, in your circle of influence, because people don't know about family support. And it's very critical that the family members whose children are or aren't in treatment either way, to know that there's something there for them. Hi, Maria!
Hi,
Maria! I sing, but I can't.
Me neither.
If I could, I would.
Well, Steve can.
Yes, he can.
Don't tempt me.
How blessed.
Oh, come on.
There was somebody I used to follow said the only the only place he heard men sing was in church.
Yeah.
And that was as good a reason to go to church.
Well, that's
as
why
any.
when people say, well, wow, you can really sing, I say, I get a lot of practice.
That's true, but some of us practice wouldn't help us.
Yeah, exactly.
So Maria is Continuum of Care Coordinator at the Seacoast
Hi.
Public Health Network.
Hey.
And why don't we go around the table and introduce ourselves? A couple of community members and friends are here.
Want to start, where do you want to start?
We'll start with Maria.
Okay, Maria Reyes with Seacoast Public Health.
Karen Morton Clark, Recovery Friendly Advisor with the Governor's Recovery Friendly Workplace Initiative.
That was such a great presentation you
Thank
gave
you,
the last
Steve,
time,
thank
that,
you.
when you did that.
Yes,
That
wasn't it? It was
really,
very
really good.
informative.
Yeah, appreciate that, yeah.
Alex Sturgeon, the YMCA CEO, right down the street over here.
Super. Great.
There you go, baby, now you're official.
Oh, thank you.
Herb Moyer, Exeter, videographer.
And Steve McGee, pastor of Exeter Presbyterian Church.
Sharon Fernie, I'm a member of the co-op at Exeter River.
Awesome.
Simone Farland, and I'm a friend of this dear lady, and I just came along and I'm learning a lot of neat stuff from what she does.
Yeah. it's
Thank
good.
you very much. Okay, so, updates from those at the table. I'm a poor fill-in for Ryan. As you know, if you know him, he's working all over the state doing trainings in harm reduction. Naloxone training. He's available for almost any group to have him come, and he'll distribute Narcan, he'll teach people what harm reduction means, and that's extremely important. He's in recovery himself, he has a testimony that's very powerful. Those of you who've heard it would attest. So, Ryan has a new job. He was working for Safe Harbor Recovery, so we had more of his time, but now that has this doorway job. Does doorway mean anything to you, Alex? Okay, not really.
Sure.
All right, let's
I'll
start
send
with
you
that.
info.
Thank you.
So, do you want to explain it, Karen?
No, I was just gonna say I can send him info.
Yes.
I think that would be really
But how about
helpful.
just a quick
Sure.
overview?
So there are 9 doorway locations throughout the state of New Hampshire, and they are often referred to by the New Hampshire 211 system. And anyone can go to any doorway that they choose. So one that would be close to, 2 that are close to us would be Granite Pathways, which is the doorway in Manchester, New Hampshire. And then there's also one affiliated with the Wentworth Douglas Hospital in Dover for Stratford County. But there are 9 different locations, and the idea is that no one would have to travel more than about an hour to get to a doorway location. So if somebody were to call New Hampshire 211, let's say, which is 24/7 confidential, they'll speak with an information and referral specialist, and then depending on what the nature of the issue is, and by the way, substance use disorder gets priority, they could then be referred to a doorway where they will have a clinical evaluation and where they'll be assigned a case manager if that's the appropriate level of care for them. And then that case manager navigates things for that person from that point on, so that's in a wicked nutshell.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's fair to say that it's the state's
Oops, we have a pastor in the house, I
response
shouldn't say wicked,
to
right?
No, it's a real
to
word.
set up this doorway system. If anyone has a concern or even a question, you know, I'm not really sure about my uncle, my brother-in-law, you can just call 211.
Yeah.
And they will set you up with somebody who can answer questions. So it's in all our best interests to try and get people to use 211.
And I'll just say too, you know, there's no magic bullet. I mean, it's a process, and sometimes, you know, there are little bits of weights depending on what the
Yes,
nature of the
right.
request is. But I'll go back for a second to Ryan, and I will say that he's done a lot of training for myself in my position and for the Recovery Friendly Workplace. And he does one of the most compelling Narcan trainings I think I've ever witnessed. Why? Because he's been revived by Narcan.
Right.
So he can speak to that in a way that other people cannot.
Sure,
And it
absolutely.
really is compelling. So
Right.
if you have a business or know of a business that wants that training, there's no cost to it.
Right,
So-
yeah. I mean, I think he told me today when I told him you were speaking that he's doing all the whys at some general meeting that you have.
Interesting.
Yeah, some annual meeting.
We can
or
connect you with
something.
that too. We want you to become recovery friendly at the
Yeah,
Y, so
sure.
there.
You won't get out of here without a lot of people saying,
Pressure.
we want you. But, I mean, it's exciting to have the Y as a partner, because we're all concerned about the health of our community, the general health of our community. And one way or another, whether as citizens or as professionals, we're engaged in helping to make our community better.
And really, recovery is about health and wellness, so this is a
Absolutely.
perfect.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it is, for sure. Okay, so, that's all I have to say about the work that Ryan's doing. His card is in your packet. His doorway information is attached to your packet, and as is the family support group. So there are 2 or 3 cards there, those little business cards. Yeah, one is rye and one is general doorway stuff. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of printing materials, Maria, don't you find?
Oh, yes, there
Yes.
is, yes. But these took a long time for us to get, so.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
trust
good
me.
card.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good.
okay,
Yeah,
well,
very good.
we wanna use them, that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? So the other information in your packet is about language, a 2 back and front sheet. Everywhere I go, I hear people still saying addicts and saying junkies and say, you know, so we can do better than that. And if in our circle we hear folks talking that way, we can gently correct. And I think we'll all be better for that. So, let's see. Recovery initiatives. Karen Clark and I were talking about the newly opened Hampton Center on 1 Lafayette Road. Just as you come on to Route 1 off 101. It's a couple of blocks down on the left. It's in back, but there is a sign with a big 1, number 1. So that's how you find the treatment center in Hampton. It is an SOS extension. SOS being the recovery program that's been so successful in Dover and Rochester. John Burns is the head of that, and they're really doing the Lord's work. You know, they just are. I mean, they're training people. They have all kinds of meetings at their centers, every AA meeting, an Al-Anon meeting, and NA meeting, and they're doing art therapy. They're doing all kinds of things. I went to their fair this summer that they have every year in Dover. Met a lot of folks who have treatment centers across Massachusetts and New Hampshire, talking about medicine-assisted treatment, talking about, you know, how Narcan is saving lives, but what about after that, right? What happens after you save somebody's life? And this is Maria's work, she can talk about it better than I, the continuum of care that we so desperately need in the state. And frankly, coming from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, as I have, it's been disappointing to see how far behind we are. That lovely meeting that I went to at the high school that had so much good information, and when I filled out my survey, I said, it's all good information, and I'm really happy to have people hear it. Hello, Esther, do come in.
I would have been here earlier, but I couldn't find you.
Well, it wasn't, Building A is not easy to find.
I didn't have the.
Esther is another friend and community member.
Hi.
So I said, we are 5 years behind, because I heard all of this information, every bit of it, 5 years ago in Massachusetts. And that's because they get funding. You know, they get public health funding, they get mental health funding, and you can do a lot when you have the resources. So we are looking to the nonprofit side and really to the community to say, what's our piece in all this? You know, because the government isn't going to be able to do it all. And if we look hard enough, each of us has somebody in our, if you draw the circle wide enough, somebody that we're concerned about in terms of their mental health, which often leads to substance use disorder. So that's why we meet, and that's why we share information. I want to go pretty early now to Alex, because I want Karen to be able to hear what you're doing. So Alex is the CEO of the YMCA, and they have received a $200,000 grant for a mental health program.
So there's a little bit more to that than, it's not,
Yes.
not a grant directly to us for that amount. Here's 5 copies in color, and some extras as well.
You guys, keep the color.
Any more are needed?
Anyone else?
Put one here, Alex.
Linda, did you go?
Alex,
No, not yet.
Alex.
There you go.
Yeah, put one there, sure, thanks.
We're gonna mix it up. You keep yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
I'll begin, I'll give you maybe the long version just to
Sure.
understand. We are not recipients of a $200,000 grant. We're actually working on a grant from the hospital as a part of their initiative to address youth suicide in the community. So when they did their community needs assessment 3 years ago, they decided as an organization and a board to put all of their money behind youth suicide prevention. So they funded 12 different nonprofit organizations in the community to do that work, and we were one of those, and we received grant funding to do that. And before I got here, we had been recipients of enough money to transform our teen center, bought all kinds of equipment prior to my arrival, but we didn't have any teens.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I came, I started asking questions like, where are all the kids? Well, there aren't any. So the use of the money to buy that equipment wasn't really getting kids in the door, and they were trying to give away free teen memberships, and we did quite a few. But the initiative was, you got to give away a whole bunch. We literally couldn't give enough away. So we shifted focus a little bit on how we use those funds to do what I call the mental health initiative. When I arrived, I learned early on, because we were the host site for 2 years ago for Connors Climb, their run. And I met the organizers, talked to them. We have a couple of our staff members, our board members of Connors Climb, as a matter of fact. Learned all about what's going on in the community. I was horrified to hear that there were 7 suicides of middle and high school age kids throughout the last 8 years. That was, and I thought, that's unbelievable. And I learned about what the hospital was doing. I learned about how they're supporting the community. I thought to myself, being in the Y for 25 years in different locations, that this is somewhere the Y can plant their flag. We can do more in this regard to be a better resource in the community. You had mentioned, supporting the community. That's, the Y has the facilities to exercise and be well, and, we have a gymnasium, so typically the gym and swim model is what you think of when you think of Y sometimes. But we have this ability to be nimble and help in different ways. There's lots of different ways for us to be a resource in the community.
Excellent.
So what I had proposed to the staff at the Y that I worked with was this initiative. We vetted the whole thing and said, it was my impression that we could be a better resource. We collaborated together. We now have a task force made up of staff who are very like-minded. I have a young, two boys, 16 and 13, and my 16-year-old really struggles with depression and anxiety and has for his whole life. How it affects the family, how it affects the child, how important wellness is to him and support of his peers in the community. I know that from a first-hand knowledge standpoint, and so do the others on the task force. We all have some skin in the game, if you will.
Yes.
So my idea was what's in front of you here, and we have been moving forward. I will read through this so you understand kind of the overall mission and objective of this. As it says on the first page, the vision is the Southern District YMCA will be a leader in addressing the mental health issues impacting the youth and families we serve. And from there, the mission is the Southern District YMCA will provide access to resources, collaborate with other organizations, and build awareness among our staff and members of the challenges the youth of our community face in relation to the mental health crisis. A lot of what you know in the world of addiction is that a lot of times there's an underlying mental health issue. You've heard Judge Broderick a couple times this year say the same thing. I've seen him speak 3 different times at different community events, one here, one down the seacoast, one in Manchester. And every time I'm always moved by what that means to him and what it means to addressing the stigma of mental illness. His son obviously was dealing with a lot of those addiction issues that really mask those issues for mental health. My point is we can probably have a pretty decent amount of success by getting to the kids sooner, identifying how these kids are feeling early on. We have thousands of kids in our care every year. We have 700 families we serve in the region in our before and after school programs at 12 different elementary schools. And we have 600 kids a week at our Camp Lincoln property in Kingston that come from all different parts of the state and other states. And then we have 6,000 members of our facility right next door over here. So we service a lot of folks. We touch a lot of lives. And so just by sheer number, I thought we could have an impact if we can start to talk about what's bothering kids at an earlier stage. Can we help them and identify? So I thought we got to get good at identifying and having better conversations. We have to be better at having the conversation. I didn't feel I was equipped to identify these signs myself personally, nor did the task force that we've assembled. And then we need to collaborate with other people. We need to, there are other people doing this work. How can we help them? And then we need to tell people, which is what I'm doing today, we need to tell people what we're doing, what we're up to, and why we can help, and if you can think of us as a resource. So it's those 3 bullets down below that are collaboration, communication, and conversation.
Absolutely.
The collaboration piece, each of these has a strategy and objectives, as you can see here. So under collaboration, it's with mental health organizations, schools, or school districts, hospitals, other organizations. And the strategy is to identify organizations that we can collaborate with to provide resources to our members and staff about how to address health issues. We're not looking to diagnose. Go right ahead.
Do you happen to have another?
I do, yeah.
Skip Berry. Skip is a retired pediatrician.
Skip is an active member of the YMCA.
So am I.
Yeah, that's good.
Pleased to see you, Skip.
Fast every year.
The collaboration there is really about, we're not looking to diagnose people. There are experts in the field, and we want to be able to be more of a hub for those that might be struggling to be thinking, I'm dealing with these issues in my family. I think the Y has some information on their website, or I went to a training at the Y, and I can get connected with the appropriate resource. Could be addiction therapy, it could be any of the number of organizations you deal with, mental health organizations. We don't want to have a landing page on our website and information available at the branch to say, you can get help if you need it. We're here to kind of connect the dots for you. So those objectives you see there are the 3 things we're trying to accomplish. We want to identify within a year 2 to 3 organizations to collaborate with. We want to continue to work with Exeter Hospital, supporting the work that we do, and expand to our school age and camp programs, and find 2 additional sources to seek funding from. So we know that there's, and again, I attended the Concord Symposium for Children's Behavioral Health a couple days ago, and I know that money's starting to flow in for behavioral health issues statewide, because they know this is a major issue, not only locally, but all over the state, really all over the country. So we will be seeking some of that funding to further support what we've got. The communication piece on the next page is really how we're going to tell that story through our website, Facebook, email, town communications, video, print media, and flyers. We made a video with our task force members and myself to talk about what we're doing, why, that we posted and we sent on Facebook. We're starting this initiative to go talk to different groups throughout the region. We've identified a list of about 20 different groups to talk to, and want to make sure we're sharing this initiative and helping people understand how we can be a resource. The last page is really, the second to last, is the conversation piece. It's about facilitating conversations with and among teens, parents, teachers, and other relevant groups to keep the dialogue going related to mental health issues facing the community. So have conversations that can help facilitate the dialogue and get someone the help they might need to identify what they might need sooner, because we have so many kids in our care. We were looking at intentionally having guided discussions with children in our care at a branch, camp, and school age locations at least 4 different times a year. Facilitate conversations with school administration, emergency personnel, and town officials to better understand how to work cooperatively together. And then facilitate conversations with parents to better understand the challenges they face. Some of the things that we've done with the hospital funding, we've been very open with the hospital about, we think we would have a better impact using the funds in this way to train our staff around mental health first aid, which we do have now on staff 2 trained trainers, so they can be used in the community, and they actually, to maintain their certification, have to provide 2 a year. So we have staff that have stayed a week to get trained as mental health first aid trainers.
Can I just interrupt for a second? That's a whole new phrase to me.
Is
What
it?
I've just,
Yep.
mental health first aid.
It's a great
Doesn't
idea.
that just
Yeah,
make
that's a
so
great
much
idea.
sense?
Yeah.
We all need to know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
I don't know what that training consists of, but I was a school counselor for 35 years, and I bet there's
Right.
more to learn.
Yeah.
And I was a middle school teacher at the beginning of my career, and I tell everyone, the first year I taught 8th grade, and there was a girl that the principal was concerned about, and she spoke to me about her. And that girl came to my room almost every afternoon, because, they always find somebody. She made it, she did very well. But another boy, Mark, went home and hung himself. Nobody ever knew what was going on with him. And that was my first year teaching. I was like, how is it possible?
Well, and that's part of the pattern generally, is that boys are more effective at, and
Hiding it,
often you don't get the warning as much.
right?
As with girls, you get it, a
Yeah,
little bit
they
more.
talk, they.
Yeah, so my son died by suicide at 22. This just sounds really good to me, because one of the things that tends to happen is when there's some kind of intervention, as there was for my son. We didn't really know what was going on, but
Sure.
there was a little bit of an intervention without us really being involved. But that ended up taking him into the mental health world. And he was a runner. I think he would have appreciated like this kind of a sports connection in there. But with the mental health world, what ends up happening is oftentimes drugs right away, which part of the reality with the drugs is that a certain percentage of people are helped by them, a certain percentage of people get worse, which my son was in that group. He got worse with the under psychiatric care, and then a percentage have no impact. And that, unfortunately, I think is part of the problem, is that people think, well, we've got to get someone to a mental health professional. Well, okay, I agree, but the problem is, if that's going to be immediate drugs and very little conversation, I'm not sure that's such a great first step. Whereas this is a great, to me, it's a great first step.
Yeah,
You know,
that's exactly
Normalizes
the
things
point.
a little bit in a way, instead of going to to a psychiatrist.
Yes,
That's right.
yeah,
like
right.
you're
Getting the
talking
kids to
to-
come
Right.
is still the challenge. Have you met with Mark Anderson at Austin 17 House in
I
Brentwood?
probably have met him,
Okay.
your name is familiar.
He's an
but-
Irishman, you'd remember him.
I mean, our initiative is really to, with this, is to do as you said, for people to know that if you're looking for information, if you think it's supposed to be, immediate psychiatric help, that's probably not the case, but on our website and what information you can get are just a phone number, an email, a contact of someone who you can, you think of NAMI, New Hampshire, places like that where you can go and get information, kind of a clear path to get someone well. Because I think the old school thinking was we got to get them right to the hospital or something like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily true in all cases, and you have somebody who's an expert who can tell you what the best next step is, depending on what. So we've also used this money to have NAMI New Hampshire come in and do a full training of our staff on suicide prevention and post-prevention, so we can better understand the signs and how to deal with those things, how to react to.
Is that open? Could you, when you have staff training, is it a definite number of people, or could you open that? Is it possible to open that training to the community?
So now what we have with the mental health first aid is we have the ability to open a training to the community. So we train those staff to be trainers so that we could open it to the community. We will first train our staff because we have so many kids in our care, we want to be better at recognizing the signs,
Yeah.
but have an opportunity for it. And the first person I talked to about this was the new chief of police, Chief Poolum. He was interested. He was at Rotary presenting. He
Yeah.
had talked to his lieutenant, and the police are in a difficult spot because the options for them are a hospital or jail for someone
Right.
who's struggling
Yeah.
with mental illness.
Right.
So how are they equipped to handle this thing? And,
Right.
and mental health first aid training can help in that regard. So we will provide it for free to the community. We hope to do that at least a couple times a year.
Excellent.
So, so in terms of a kid coming in, and getting engaged in some way at the Y, what's the pathway or pathways for them? Like, would there be a group there that they might have some sports connection with, or is it just like a talk group, or what do you, or is it just information?
It's just information because
Okay.
the why we do not have what Austin 17 House does.
Right.
This isn't a very specific for this thing. You want to be a member, you
Yeah.
can be a member or be a guest. Come in and pay $5 and just play basketball or hang out or meet some friends and be there. If you in the branch, you can get information if you're interested in getting it
Okay.
about mental health.
So, what if like an Austin 17 or whatever had some kind of opportunity to sort of actually do it in the Y, bridge the gap? Because it seems like the Y is that's a great front door
Oh,
for
yes.
people. That's what I'm thinking. Where you
exactly
think,
right.
you could come in, okay, I like sports or whatever, and yet I'm having these feelings, and
Someone trained as a professional to collaborate with us,
To mentor,
to
yeah,
talk to.
yeah.
That's being a resource in the community because, again, we aren't the mental health professionals, but we do have a facility and the passion to do this and help in some way. So you're exactly right, and you hit the nail on the head. It's how can we be a better resource?
So one of the
That's
things
it.
I'm thinking about that Linda has been talking about is disaffected youth. This idea of disaffection. Is that the word you've been using? And that really struck me. That there's like something broken there, and there's like a loss of trust in authority figures. Things like that, and just feeling. I'm sort of out of touch with the normal connections within a society that would help you to be healthy.
Right.
Help you to feel safe, help you to be okay.
Right.
Start questioning everything to the point of having nothing to hang on to, no foundation to stand on. And once you go over the edge and you're ready for recovery, all of a sudden we can talk about higher power, things like that. Prior to that, oftentimes with people, it's like, no, it's the secular world. I'm obviously having a problem in some sense with my soul connection with body, but I can't even begin to talk about it because it almost seems illegal, to open up the idea of some kind of spiritual until you're really in trouble.
Right.
And then And then, of course, I'm powerless, I need a higher power, you know?
We hope to get
yeah.
our staff to a level that we can identify, because we serve kids in first grade, and you'd be surprised at how many are struggling at that age with a family situation.
Yeah.
That here's the next iteration, right? So our staff to identify early on and begin conversations with the organizations we're partnered with the parents, to identify early on, to start to learn on the front side before you get somebody who's at a point of hopelessness. That's our real hope, is that prevention side. So to that end, I was at the Seacoast Mental Health Breakfast 2 weeks ago and met a woman named Jody, who's the family program director for, I'm probably butchering her title, but she does this currently in schools. She provides a behavioral health specialist in Exeter schools and all around the region through funding that they have, so that they can have someone in these schools be a person who is an expert in the field to identify these symptoms early on and work with children before things get worse. Yeah. I've had since, now I came up in the Y, like I said, I've been working for 25 years as a professional, but as a counselor and a camp guy, another 10 before that. So I've had my whole life in the Y, and when I was a camp counselor, I often thought, why is this kid here who I can't get through to? The parent just drops him off, and I'm left to deal with this because his behavior is off the charts, or he's really aggressive. There's a need here, and I don't know how to provide it. I've often thought, why can't the Y provide a person who's an expert to help me help this kid and also help the kid themselves? So that's what Seacoast Mental Health is doing in these school districts, and that's what I've talked to this woman about doing for the Y. If we can get it funded, I will have a person who can do this at the branch, at our school age program, in our camp during the summer.
I'm really sorry that Jamie Soller isn't here, because Jamie generally comes, but he's in charge of the student services for SAU 16.
Great.
And he has 3 little kids himself, and he's very interested in this subject, and I certainly will advise him to see the
video. Come talk to me. And,
that would be great. I mean, he's as busy as anybody else can be.
It just would be interesting. Like we have connections with Young Life, right? And Andrew Vogan, and they're connected with St. Michael's now.
Yes.
So they're into St. Michael's, and they're involved in the high school
and Austin 17.
Yeah, and they had a suicide of one of their guys that had been in Young Life, and it's on everybody's mind. I think this issue.
Well, the anxiety issue. I have never in my life seen this grow, and with little ones. There are grandparents at the table. We need to know this information for the little ones. And you have contact, I didn't realize, it didn't occur to me, 800 kids in this program, 700 kids in that program, because you do childcare, you provide childcare.
Yeah, that's what makes it a great, a great connection point.
That's an awful lot.
What I was thinking about is like, if you take a whole range of people that are, in a sense, part of the solution. They may not be mental health professionals, like Andrew Vogan he's a Young Life coordinator.
Star.
He's not a mental health professional. So what is he? He's a professional friend.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big part of the solution.
He's like a connector.
Yeah, he's basically, and there are a lot
own.
of people around that are professional friends. And the question, if we could begin to think of a place where there could be that exposure, where you could say, oh yeah, Andrew Vogan. Oh, okay, now I see him, he's at the high school, oh, this is a safe person, this is a good person to have a connection with.
I hope to house this information centrally.
Good,
that
that's
last
what we've needed.
page is basically how I see it.
Yep.
It's that kind of Venn diagram, if you will, that, all the outside pieces, I think schools and hospitals have a limited reach, and we can connect, we can be more of a hub for the community in exactly that way. And what we're building now, and I hope to have accomplished before the new year or soon thereafter, is just, as we're kind of changing websites, so we want to have a landing page that could have someone like that as in a description of what they do and who they are.
Yeah.
on our page along with these other healthcare providers, these other mental health providers. So that if someone new, oh, you could just go to the Y website, they have a bio of this guy, you should check it out, right?
Right.
You could just refer them to that, click on it and get information.
Right.
And then if you wanted to click on the other resources, because now you're there on a page that is dedicated to that. That's our main objective, is
good.
connect people. Our facility is used as a resource too. We hosted the Connors Climb race. We've hosted the suicide prevention trainings for the community. We just we saw the movie recently about the suicide attempt of jumping off the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Impactful stories like that.
Yeah.
If we, an audience for a larger community, we have 6,000 members that we can reach out to and engage in this kind of work to expose them to. If they're interested, come and use our facility to host a meeting, host a gathering, or learn more about something. So as a resource, a physical resource in the community, but also out in the community trying to help in that way, as I described. So that's kind of how I see it, connecting the dots and helping those who, schools sometimes I think get in their own way. There's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy that can slow a school down. Parents get frustrated after the fact. If there's a traumatic event, they don't really, it's tough for schools to respond. Their hands are tied sometimes.
Right.
We have resources available. We can connect those families to certain things. If they're not finding it from their school, they can connect to us and find it there. So that's the objective for us.
It's just another fabulous resource. I'm still stuck on this mental health first aid.
Yeah.
Can you give me just an idea of what it consists of?
So it's really about training. It's an intensive training for an individual to understand how to help someone who's struggling with mental health issues, depending on what that issue might be, an appropriate response and care.
So
some of it's
recognizing the
conversation.
symptoms and things
It's-
like
there-
that?
There's like yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Recognizing the symptoms.
Is it a NAMI program?
No, it's I believe it's more of a national
SAMHSA?
It is.
program.
Yeah, I think it is.
But it's a 4-hour training. It's an
Okay.
intensive training.
Okay.
So for us, and again, we have to do this to keep our staff certified in this.
Right.
So we're going to put this out. And I'll certainly be reaching out and let you know the next time we do it. Because we
Yes,
do want
please do.
to have organizations like yourselves who might be interested in those in the town, like the police and anyone, other officials, schools, come in and learn about it, and get trained, get certified in
Right.
this, and so that we can take those steps.
Did Chief Poulin tell you that he now has 2 recovery coach trained officers?
Yep.
That's
So
really
I see
exciting.
him at Rotary every once in a
Yeah,
while, and
yeah.
they give some updates there, which is great.
He's great. He's really gonna be an excellent partner.
With what we've seen from the states and the changes around addressing the mental health issue in the state and locally, we know that funding will start to trickle down. There'll be some dollars available so that we can
Trickle
continue
down
this
is
work.
the operative word.
So I have a question about, we actually, as Recovery Friendly Advisors and other businesses that we work with, we've been promoting this very mental health first aid training, which is happening, I think, in Claremont or something up at Dartmouth Hitchcock in a couple of weeks, but love that this can be local. So
Yeah.
2 questions. One, are you scheduling or have you scheduled certain times for that to happen? And 2, what's your capacity? Because I'd like to get a group of people together and to come to your
Sure.
location
Yeah.
to get that training.
Yeah, no, we have not scheduled a date yet. We have our staff that just got certified this summer.
Oh, wow.
So this is our initiative here with the task force. We have a couple of those trained staff. We will put something together and make sure that you know about it so we can do it locally. We can host anywhere from 5 to 500
That's
if we
awesome.
wanted to, because we can use different parts of our facility. If something got so big and we needed to use the gym, that'd be great, but we have a community room, which you're familiar with, right, so the
We
meeting
used to
room.
hold our meetings in it, but we got kicked out.
You can easily, you
That's
can get
on
40
tape
people.
now.
That's okay.
You can get 40 people in that room. There's, IT and, video presentations.
But Alex said why it was, because they put the gym together
Yeah.
in that room, and then they needed the kids
Team
to be able
space,
to
yeah.
meet,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of what
Yeah.
happened. Shuffling
So-
things around,
Right.
so I
No, I
appreciate the
understood.
flexibility there.
I can just see
But
all
yeah.
kinds of possibilities, like, we have 150 businesses that we work with currently across the state and
Yeah.
growing all the time. And so, as an example, Walmart Distribution Center, 800 employees. Those employees have families
Yeah.
and kids.
Yeah.
This is a great
I mentioned
connecting.
this to Jen Wheeler, president of the
Yes, I know
chamber,
Jen,
And I said, what do you know, this mental health initiative, would it be something I could talk to, the group about? She didn't think it quite fit, but the mental health first aid may, because
I think it will.
it speaks to businesses who are
Yeah.
have families and are, individuals themselves.
And
So-
just like what you were saying, Linda, when I was doing direct service, any client I worked with suffered from anxiety and depression along with their substance use disorder.
Yeah,
So, and it's
absolutely.
more and more prevalent, and I think they say
And
sometimes
the whole
because of social
family
media, but
suffers from anxiety.
absolutely.
One member is that ill,
Yes.
the whole
it
family.
stands out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we've focused on youth to begin with. We want to get our feet under us.
Sure.
We have so
Yes.
many kids in our care because the
Absolutely.
question came up, well, why not everybody? We have a lot of kids that we are in
Yes.
charge of,
That's where it
and
has to
we're going to
happen.
start there. And of course, if there are resources that are of help to any aged individual, of course, they're available.
Right.
So we're just focused on the kids that are in our care to start. but
Absolutely.
This is more of a non-age
That's your
issue.
cohort right now.
Yeah, right.
The other thing that I'm thinking about here is organization groups that provide mentoring and so forth, just sort of natural things, coaches and teachers and
Right.
so forth. Like Young Life, there are various things. So it's great for kids to get connected, especially if maybe the connection in the family for some reason,
Right.
and sometimes in the family you don't even know something's broken, and-
Right.
and it is.
Right.
But the other thing is transition points, I think, are really difficult moments
Yeah.
for kids.
Yeah.
And one of the big transition points is going from high school to college, and then going from college to the next step.
Not to mention middle to high school.
Yeah, middle to high school. So I think those transition points are
Yes.
places where, like, we lose some of our mentoring connections. Maybe we had a coach that was carrying
Right,
us
absolutely.
in a great way
Absolutely.
through high school. Then we get to college, and all of a sudden, this coach is like, he's got a whole different philosophy, of how
Right.
he relates to people,
Right.
and it's
Absolutely.
it's entirely different. So I mean, it's really hard to figure. I mean, no one can figure out. Okay, how do we solve all this?
Well, just being aware of it, Steve,
Yeah.
is the first step,
Right.
right? To recognize that kids can get lost in those transitions, so we have to pay particular attention at those
And to
times.
recognize that we need face-to-face relationship in this
Yes,
society.
It's all about relationships.
Because
for you, I
that's
know.
what we're really missing right now. We have this loss of face-to-face contact.
With social media.
Yeah, so without that, you really don't move into healthy mentoring
No.
unless you actually get into a face-to-face
I
relationship.
hope that, the main goal for me is for the Y to be seen as a resource. So that would mean we would have something available at the branch or on our website that you could find information about those types of things. So I'll be able to
Yeah.
lean on you all to say, give us some examples of, these things that we should include on a resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone, and hey, this, if you're looking for something, you can go to the Y website and you click on this, and then
Right.
as we get that built, it would be there for them.
Right.
So that they, in that transition time, if they felt like, oh, I really need someone between middle and high school, how do I do it? And they can click on this kind of description.
Right, right.
Skip had a
Skip, you were
question.
definitely.
Hi. It's great you're here. When I go in, the staff that I see are kind of the mind-body people that are, training people to
Physical health.
and physical health as well as mind. And so I'm wondering what staff are specifically being targeted to get this kind of training that you're talking about.
So our leadership staff is made up of full-time employees. We have several in our after-school programs. We have the leadership staff that reports to me. So I have Tanisha and I have Stephanie, I have Reed, who's out at camp, all trained as prevention and post-vention for suicide prevention. And Tanisha and Wendy are trainers for mental health first aid. So we have, our hope is that we can train the community and make our program level and entry level staff aware of where the resources are and how to find help. They to include them in getting better at recognizing those signs, to include them in some of this, not to be trainers, but to provide. That's our next step, is to take our program level staff and train them on how to recognize these signs. So go through a mental health first aid training, so that in our school age program, where there are 50 some odd employees, each at a different site.
50.
More than 50.
Yeah,
We have
they
more
have
than
800
200.
kids in one
Yeah.
program, 700 in the other.
That's
That's
right.
a lot of kids.
It's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So as those staff are seeing their kids at their school, they are now aware of what the signs are. So we start with a small group, train the program level staff, and then I hope to support that with, like I said, a position like something what the Seacoast Mental Health does.
Sure, yeah.
So that if you need a little extra,
Yeah.
you're trained in this, but you need a little more support from an expert, someone can get involved, work with you and a parent, or train someone specifically, and we can get better at it. So that's our objective going into the next summer. So we got our camp staff who are seeing that many kids. All those counselors will have an awareness and an understanding. So yeah, that's
My
how
kids
we're
went
gonna
to
do it.
Camp Lincoln.
Did they?
Yep, 30 years ago,
Nice.
35 years ago.
That's awesome.
So this is really, it's great to hear about this whole idea of mental health first aid. I think
Yes,
that's
I
a
know.
great
It's just-
idea. And the more we could have, I'm just thinking of connecting this to the corporate initiative. Like if you had people in the corporate world and there's safe contacts for mental health first aid,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so that someone who's working there, they it's a safe contact. They're, you know, that's I think part of the challenge is we may be well-meaning, but we're not necessarily safe contacts if all we're going to do is get freaked out
Right.
when someone comes to us and indicates they've got a problem with anxiety or depression and we don't know what to do, you know,
Or
so
what to say. Yeah.
or whatever. So the more that you had safe contacts out in the normal organizations of this world, rather than feeling like you
The
have to go.
EAP program, you know, the HR office that nobody wants to go to.
Right, or
Yeah.
some kind of thing that has a stigma associated
Yes,
with it.
right.
But instead, like, just right into
Regular
the
people.
normal,
Yes.
hey, I'm in a sport, I'm in
Yeah.
this group, I'm in a corporation, I'm in a
Right.
church, whatever. There's
Yeah.
a lot of safe contacts
Yes.
around, and they know enough at least to be able to be a good first step, you know?
It'd be great to have, you know, the coaches and teachers
Yeah.
of different school districts have that kind of awareness and training.
Right.
So that as a safe contact, they can get those children they see all the time,
Yeah.
they can start to identify the signs. That's the point for us is we need to get better. And when I thought of it, the common sense of it is, I don't feel comfortable having that conversation. How do I get comfortable?
Right.
I need some
Right.
training.
That's
and
right.
what is
Right.
that training? And so we dig in, we find this out, and now we feel, okay, let's get that training so I can feel better about having a conversation and
Right.
recognizing those signs.
Right, and realize, okay, if someone comes to me and they indicate that they're suicidal, what's my next question that I have for them, you know?
Don't leave them.
Yeah, and just, you know, what's a
Right.
good,
What do you do?
what's a
Have
good
you thought
next
about a
question that I
plan?
have, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, have you thought,
Yeah.
do you have a
Yeah.
plan, do you, how
You could
realistic
probably
is
work
it?
your way through it,
Right,
but
right.
if it's really familiar, if you've really trained yourself and
Right.
what those questions are and what your responses should be, then it's more natural.
Right.
Then you don't have to think, now what was that I was supposed to say?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Good.
It's very
So
exciting.
the connection with drug prevention, you know, I think is really important. So that's
That's
at
right.
a much hopefully lower level of, so that kids aren't getting to self-medicate themselves
exactly it.
with street drugs at this point. And that's something that do you feel you have the resources to be able to address that one, or is that someone like Ryan that we need to get involved?
So if when you say resources, is, you know, the training, the money, et cetera, the people, we are at some point, because now we've used this hospital funding to train our staff, this will not cost us a tremendous amount going forward to continue to have these trainers do their piece and train the community and continually train our staff. So there's not a lot of resources needed to become better at having these conversations from what I see. So because that was the other part, is I thought this idea up. I didn't want there to be, it didn't have to be dependent upon funding. This has to be able to be done by us continually on our own. We thankfully had the funding from the hospital. We talked to them, we said, we'd like to parlay that into this, because your objective as the hospital is to affect young people, and our purpose is to get them before they get to a place of hopelessness. and we need to do these things to do that, and they agreed. They said, yeah, the funding that we provided for the initial space and the furniture and all that in the teen center can be used for training your staff in mental health first aid, so we've done that. And so now we can go forward, now that we have that, and we can continue to train.
Yeah, the foundation.
We have that foundation built. Partnerships, collaborations is gonna keep this going. I think, I mentioned Seacoast Mental Health, I'm excited about that. Partnerships and collaborations with you all. Other organizations throughout this, our objective is this calendar year, we're coming up, we wanna get to 20 to 25 different organizations, tell them what we're doing, have this kind of discussion with them, let them know what's available and what the Y can do to be a better resource in the community. I don't see it as costing us a whole lot. If we add a position, paid for position, which is possible, that would be the position I'm talking about with Seacoast Mental Health. That would be a YMCA funded expert in behavioral health that can address issues and really further the work. If I can get it done through the partnership with Seacoast Mental Health, great, saves me a couple bucks. But I am contemplating putting that into the budget in the future because I feel it's an important need for us. If we can't get it done there, I do think if we see this really take off, that model I've had ever since I was a teenage counselor at camp, I'm going to put into action.
Awesome.
And we'll pay for
There's
it.
nothing like passion to put behind an effort,
There should be state money in there.
That would be great, and we'll definitely pursue
Let's
it.
talk about it.
So I think
yeah.
Skip's question is a really good
Sure.
question. I think this is something, the connection to the drugs. The connection to this problem with the drugs and the idea of self-medication. And I'm just kind of curious, how many parents, when they're all of a sudden, they find out, okay, their child got drunk or whatever. Do they think, why is he doing this? Or she?
Well,
What's going on
I can
here?
bring you reports from the family support group,
Yeah.
right? So every one of the members that comes has a story about their child or grandchild
Yeah,
who started with alcohol and went to weed and went to pills. Every single one of them tell the same story.
Right.
Now, along the way, parents might freak out or they might try and talk, have an open relationship, but understanding what kind of help they need at an early stage is hard for all of us.
so here's what I'm thinking about, is that oftentimes, like as a parent, you're looking at this and you, okay, well, when I was young, I wanted to have fun. So they kind of view it through fun or social. I was trying to be more social, and I felt more social. But to actually get to the point where we realize, no, you may not realize it, you're self-medicating.
Right.
And to help someone to realize you're down a pathway of self-medication. That's not a healthy. This is not a healthy pathway.
No.
There would be better ways to achieve your goals, that you're aiming for.
I don't know about the experience of the rest of you, but it's very hard to get through to kids. Even when you think, I was the school counselor.
Yeah.
But my son started, with drinking and smoking marijuana, and we ran a very tight ship at home, and we just didn't have any room for that kind of behavior. And all he did was go underground.
Yeah, tough.
Underground.
That's tough.
Yeah,
That is.
they don't tell you anything.
Right.
Once they know that you put the hammer down, they're very deceptive and can be really quite manipulative. which
So I
is a
guess
story
this
I
is
hear a
the
lot.
thing I'm thinking, Linda, is that what happens is the lie starts to
Yes,
take over in the
absolutely.
head. Because these things are basically
lying,
lies.
the lying.
Oh, I'm just going to be more social. And this is a good way for me to be more social. No,
Yeah.
it's really not. But it takes over and it starts to own you a little bit. So
Yep.
anyway,
That's the tough part.
I just felt that was an important question.
Well, I think it is, and you were talking about transition points where there's a high level of anxiety that
Right.
children are going through.
Right.
And those are points at which we should be hyper-vigilant as
Right.
to their behaviors and.
Yeah.
I'm happy that the hospital gave you this grant. Did they give you $200,000?
No, no, I wish
That's
they
what the
did.
newspaper said.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Have I seen that article? So they had.
That's where
I
I
haven't seen that check. They had $250,000 given to 12 different community partners.
Okay.
And we
That's
got
a lot
about-
different,
We got
yeah.
more than 30,000 of that over the
Okay.
last couple of years.
Quite a
And we
difference.
continue to partner with them on different things. Prescribe the Y is the next thing we just.
When did you first start talking to the hospital about this?
Well, when I arrived, it was, we had already gotten the grant for the teen memberships in the teen
Okay,
center.
okay.
And so when I started to have conversations with them was a year and a half ago, we started to change the teen center, and I started to learn more about the point of them awarding the money. And so it just started to make sense of like, well, would it be okay if we used the money in this fashion? Because it would have more of an impact for them, and certainly for us.
Who do
And
you
so-
work with at the
Jen
hospital?
McGowan is
Yep.
the award, and then Deb Vassapoli is the
Yep.
other, but
Yep.
Mark Whitney as well is involved. So, but Jen is the boots on the ground.
Yep,
So I actually now plug them. I thought as an organization, I've never seen an organization in a community do that much for one initiative, and so I nominated them, and they won the Governor's Award on Health and Wellness as an organization in Concord last year or during the summer. And Deb and Jen received the award, but I felt it was such good work because their board decided out of the top 5 initiatives that came out of the community needs assessment that this one they were going to put all their money into, and they over the 3-year period, and they funded all the nonprofits, and they have a breakfast every year to have everybody come and report on progress. I thought it was fantastic to really make that much of a difference and an impact, and I feel proud to be associated with that, and we can turn it into something even more. And it's so anyway, it was a plug for them, but good work starting from there. But I felt when I arrived, we got to do something. This is,
right.
we got to support.
We have
this
had
community.
Mark Whitney come
Yeah.
speak to us,
Yep.
and I've invited Jen and Deborah to come to these meetings as well. You may know that the community spoke back about the potential merger with Mass General. The community spoke strongly about behavioral health.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we're really pleased to hear this, because here again, does the community know that this is happening? You know?
That's
I
our-
mean,
our
that's our
objective
big
is to tell
struggle.
people,
That's
yeah.
our big
That's
struggle,
right.
because
Gotta tell our
Mark
story.
Anderson is doing such wonderful work at Austin 17, but you guys don't really have any connection, and I want to bridge that gap somehow. I mean, I just think that there has to be a better way for us to communicate what's going on in the various agencies that are working on the mental health and wellness issue. And if we can find a way to collaborate, as you said, then more of the community will know that it's available.
We already collaborate, like I had mentioned, we do know Austin 17 and have worked together over the past year and a half to do programs together, so they're very familiar with what we've got going on in us today, but also Arts and Reach and some other collaborations that are doing different work throughout the community. Again, offering the Y as a facility to do whatever programming or to visit or to bring our teens to Austin 17 House and see what
Right.
they've got going on, so it's good collaboration has started and it needs to continue. So it's that getting that word out is important.
If
Yeah.
you've toured their facility, you know that it was a former school.
Right.
So he now has set up 12 different classrooms. They have prom dresses, dozens of them waiting for prom season. They have a makeup room, and they have hairdressing. So they are ready for the girls to come in and soup to nuts. You know, those girls that cannot afford to spend hundreds of dollars for this kind of event, and they're ready to do it. I mean, it's really awesome. I had no idea. I had been out there, but I didn't tour the whole facility, and now I'm gonna be on the board, so be careful what you wish for.
When I was at the high school also had gowns and things.
Yeah, I guess, see, there were more of these agencies, places that are doing this, but when my kids went to prom, if there was somebody who couldn't afford it, another parent helped. You know, we didn't know that there was anywhere to go to do that, so progress by inches. We're making, baby steps, but this
I
is
think
very
that's-
exciting.
Thank you.
Alex,
Thanks for
it's
having
your
me.
passion and your leadership that's going to
appreciate
make
that.
this
And you
happen.
guys are doing such great work with the community on this initiative as well. So being aware and working together and knowing what's going on is certainly important for us.
And I would recommend overdose training for your people as well. So, New Hampshire received a grant, and the Epping Fire Chief was willing to accept the responsibility for 42 communities, 42 towns in New Hampshire, to go into the firehouse and teach the first responders an appropriate overdose response. As you know, they all Narcan the individuals, but what happens after that? So, Project First is trained to train the first responders, to give them recovery coaching type information if they don't have a recovery coach, which most do not yet. Well, I'd love to see that happen. But, so they have this kit that they leave with the family, and it's got Project First information, it's got recovery information, it's got that critical 211, and as I say, they are ready to come to the community and especially to the firehouses, and I would like to see every town do it. We had Project First at the table here a couple of months ago to teach us what it was that they do. But 42 communities, and again, why? Because the Epping Fire Chief said, yep, we can do that.
Yeah.
So they made a space for the gal to come into the firehouse. She has her own office, and I met with her, and she's fabulous, and so we want her to come to Exeter as well. So there are other things going on. Let me look at my list and make sure I haven't short shrifted something. The newspaper again said a Dover treatment center. Did you read that in the
heard it in the
paper?
news.
Yes.
Yeah.
How
Detox.
exciting.
Detox.
Detox
Yeah.
and treatment.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was 60
residential.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was huge.
3 stories.
Yeah.
So.
And somebody from Dover Bowl, who's in recovery,
Yeah,
is part of
yeah.
that, which was
That
awesome
owns the
to hear,
property
yeah.
or,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
I mean, that would be a game changer on
Yeah,
the seacoast.
huge.
To have that kind of facility with
Yeah.
that many beds. So we're gonna follow that. We've mentioned Austin 17. They got a grant from the Lions Club. They work with Leos. Did you ever
Yes.
hear about Leos?
Yeah.
The little guys in school? Baby lions. I love this. Because it's another touch point, right? Adults with kids, you know, extra hands-on contact. So they're pretty excited about expanding their programming. I said when I met Mark recently, I've met him in the past, but we've had a couple of meetings. I said, how do you get the cool kids to go? My kids never would have gone to a teen center. Of course, they were involved in sports
Sports, yeah.
24/7.
Right,
I said, it's not for them. It's for the lonely kids,
yeah.
the isolated kids, the kids that don't play, the kids that, you know, don't have friends. And I thought, of course it is. Of course it is.
And they provide a sense of belonging. This
Yes,
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 yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Part of, yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous. I mentioned the merger plan. I'm very supportive of it. We need behavioral health. We have this wonderful resource of a hospital in our own community. Not every community our size can say that.
That's right.
But we need behavioral health, because we'd be out of business, you know, if we had behavioral health. And they had recovery coaches in the ER, and they had a door knock program where they go to the family when they're released and follow up with them, get them connected to the resources. That's the continuum of care, right?
Absolutely.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on in Seacoast Public Health?
Oh, my goodness. Wow, first of all, I'm just blown away by
Yeah,
what
that's exciting.
everybody's doing. That's amazing. And so just a quick little synopsis of Seacoast Public Health. We cover 23 towns in the Seacoast region, and basically the continuum of care person, myself, is really the connector. So we would leverage resources with somebody like the YMCA or other organizations that might not have all the resources or a different type of resource. So, for example, we've partnered with Austin 17 House, and we look at their programs, and then we can leverage funding for certain trainings. So we don't offer direct service, but we are the ones that connect with people who are the subject matter experts and who do provide some of the training. So Lindsay and I partnered about 2 years ago, and I love the discussion about the emerging adults. That's something that the state has really been focused on since 2017. So there was a study done back in 2015, which the Seacoast was a part of, to
Bless you.
look
Thank you.
at the emerging adults. So from 18 to 21, transitioning out of school, middle
Yep.
school to
Pivotal
high
age.
school. Yep. So, and the brain is still developing. So
Yes,
you've
absolutely.
got high-risk behaviors, which is typical in a lot of adolescents. That feeling of insecurity. I mean, we all had that, but
Sure.
I think today's culture has exacerbated that loss of
Absolutely.
connection because of the, I myself have been like looking at my phone. I didn't even know you could check how many times you were on Facebook. I
Yeah.
almost had a heart attack when I looked at my
Yeah.
record. I was like, oh my goodness, I gotta stop that. So it's very insidious if it happens to somebody older who works in the field. It's a very insidious kind of slippery slope that people can get on.
Right.
And the kids have told me this. So we have some trainings that we use that it's evidence-based. That means that when we've done the training, there's some really good outcomes, and we can track that. We look at, we have a training about how to cope, but it's not stress management in the traditional sense. This is really about your feelings, not being able to measure up, and it's peer-to-peer communication. If you want to be successful with young adults, they really respond better to their own peers.
Sure they do.
And so they don't want to talk to somebody like me, they want
Right.
to talk to a Lindsay,
Yeah.
who knows
Lindsay's
the language and.
A fire plug.
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't mean that
it's
they don't relate to me as maybe a mentor.
Just differently,
But it's
yeah.
different,
Right,
you know?
right.
So that's some of the strategies that we use with the Young Adult Strategy Grant. That's what the state has funded us. So this year, and I love what I can't remember who said, to start earlier. Because, I worked in another state where early intervention, like from childcare, not childcare, what am I trying to say? Early learning. Early childhood, thank you, I'm tired. So,
Long day and
I'll get it right. That's when they started a lot of this stuff, age appropriate, of course. And we had George Kaiser of the George Kaiser Foundation in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, I mean, they were way ahead. So, and I'm from New Hampshire, and I came here and I was like, oh my God, we were doing this 25 years ago, some of this stuff. So, in all fairness, the state has gone from like 0 to 1,000, trying to put these systems in place, and it's going to take some time. But I'm very optimistic. I wasn't before, but I'm feeling much more optimistic because I'm seeing some really good stuff and more connection and collaboration.
Yeah, that's
And
what
I
we
think
need.
that's the key. Not one Y or one public health can do it, or
Right.
recovery friendly. It's really a collective effort.
Or Seacoast Mental Health.
Or Seacoast Mental Health, absolutely. Each entity does fabulous work, but together it's just humongous, the impact. So if you need any materials or want to know about resources, Lindsay and I are going to be doing a presentation about some of the work that we're going to be doing with young adults. And she wants to go earlier. She's going to do some youth programs over there, which I think is great. So that's my
Lindsay's
spiel.
one of the partners that started Austin 17 House, so
Yeah.
it was really great that you could
Steal her.
Yes, she of course continues in both jobs.
She does,
Yes.
She has the energy.
I think that's all I have. Anybody have any more questions for Alex or anybody at the table?
So great.
Very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up with you because you mentioned a couple of things I
Me too.
wanna drill down on.
You've got my card.
Yes, yes, I do. Does anybody else need Alex's card? Sure.
There's an issue which, in another sector of my life, I've become aware of, and that is homeless youth. And so obviously this intersects with a number of the issues that you're talking about.
Right.
So I just want to bring that up.
Yep.
There seems to be a dearth of resources
Absolutely.
at this point, and they're probably, they're at the highest risk of.
Yes, they are.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget Cleo Castengate sitting at the table telling us there are 20 families living in the woods in
Yeah.
Exeter tonight.
Yeah.
God bless him, God rest his
And-
soul. I'll
And
never
Judge,
forget
and
it.
Judge Broderick's story, I think was powerful that
Yep,
way too, in terms of his,
Right. Well, I know from my work in Massachusetts with Learn to Cope that we have a girl who's pregnant and she's in the woods with her boyfriend and they each have a dog. and she will not come in until somebody assures her that they will take the animals. So I said, there's a whole new area that we haven't
Oh,
thought
yeah,
about,
yeah.
fostering these animals to get people to come in off the streets for treatment, because that's all they have in the world.
Yeah.
And that's their family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, we have to find a way to foster these dogs if we want this girl to come in. Yeah, so homelessness is a huge
Yeah.
Just
issue.
another
Yeah.
connection.
And winter's coming.
Yeah.
And kids are living in their cars. I have family members that come to the support group whose kids are living in the car because they can't come home, they've abused that privilege
Many
too
times,
long.
yeah.
And
Or
so,
they've been abused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, that too.
Yeah.
You see more of that than I do, yeah.
I'm gonna switch that.
Yes, bye.
Okay.
I'll catch up
Thank
to you
you.
later
Yes,
about that
thank
other
you.
meeting.
Thank you so much, Alex.
So appreciate everybody coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Please
It
take
was a
the
great meeting.
information.
It was a great meeting.
It was
Really.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
really
thank
appreciate it.
Alex.
Alex, thank you so much, yeah,
Thanks for having me down.
yeah, and,
Good to see you.